Hi class, so this is our last week of reading texts before your exam, and I just wanted to go over a few things. So as you'll read and or listen from the week introduction video, you are entering into a week on modern American drama. So you'll be reading Fences, which was first performed in 1987. So relatively in the scope of things, since we started with um, Greek drama, this is pretty recent, and many of you may have seen the 2016 Denzel Washington adaptation, and so you might have some understanding of the content already, but you should definitely still read the script of the play to note differences and other things. So you are to read that and to keep in mind, the things that you read in the introduction part. So a lot of this class you've been asked to think about the struggle between, free will and, external circumstances affecting one's destiny, affecting one's fate. So early on, these external circumstances might have been the abstract quality of fate or the gods. And in these more recent plays, as time has moved on, those external circumstances have shifted to be the actual environment. And so this week, reading the theory written by Arthur Miller on what modern tragedy encompasses should be quite illuminating. So the hamartia, that tragic flaw in, the character we saw with Oedipus, that perhaps his flaw was, searching for too much knowledge and his persistence in that pursuit. But here in modern dramas, the flaw resides not so much, it is within the individual, but it's not so much a flaw as its tragedy is that it shouldn't have to be a flaw, and that is, one's inability to tolerate injustice. And so we might think about where that injustice resides in these plays. So like in A Doll's House, is the injustice created by Nora and her misperception of her surroundings, or is there some social problems that are being explored in that play, perhaps justly, even if she maybe responds to them appropriately or inappropriately, up to you. So so the hamartia, according to Arthur Miller, is now man's or woman's inherent unwillingness to remain passive in the face of what he conceives to be a challenge to his dignity. So basically this amounts to the unwillingness to be marginalized for whatever reason, including one's identity. So these plays tackle issues of marginalized identities, one of them being racial. So with this play, you want to think about the ways in which racial minorities are marginalized or treated unequally, with biases, unfairly, and silenced, not really given a voice. Those are all elements of marginalization. And we'll want to really explore that with this play. And so that's the hamartia in this new modern tragedy. Then the anagnorisis, or that recognition of the tragic flaw on the part of the hero, where he or she comes sort of face to face with that which caused his or her downfall, that moment, that aha moment of recognition, becomes when there is recognition of what that wrong is in the environment. And then the catharsis from the audience comes not from witnessing the downfall or purging the emotions that come from the downfall, but in experiencing the shock and pity that comes from understanding the ills of society and having to wrestle with that. So you might think about the ways in which that catharsis is not quite as comforting because it's not quite as distancing. We, as society members, are implicated in the wrongdoing and the harm, and so that catharsis sort of maybe feels incomplete, lacking closure. So another thing to consider as you read this play. So for this week, you have the standard assignments, the quiz and reading notes, and discussion post, and you do have the third of the creative engagement, of course, and then the third theatrical adaptation assignment. So you're just taking that same biblical passage and adapting it to suit another genre. So it can't be the cycle plays, and it can't be the whatever one you chose, whatever genre or you chose for your last submission. So it has to be a new one. And when you're doing that, I want you to really keep in mind and attend very closely to the explanation of that genre, and think about other elements that sort of distinguish it from the other period. So if there are standard character moves, like with the No theater, there should be masks specific to the different types of characters. The different types of characters should be utilized appropriately. The Waki opens the play and is the agent usually for self-discovery for the main character, and those things, how emotions are portrayed, are involved by like stage directions that need to indicate illumination or clouding. So those things should appear in your script that you write. The same goes for any of the genres. With Greek drama, I should be able to identify, the hamartia, the agnagnesis, the moment of recognition, and the catharsis. There should be a chorus and all those other elements standard for that genre. Just because the themes are the same doesn't make it the same genre. So like with The Tempest, just because the focus is on shipwreck doesn't mean that every play in that genre is focused on that same idea. That just happens to be a setting of that particular play. And so you want to think about what else distinguishes a tragicomedy from other forms of drama, using the resources provided to you in that particular week. So just a note about trying to attend as closely to considerations of genre as possible. You guys have been very creative. I really enjoyed reading the fun dialogue and everything else that you come up with. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me for an appointment or anything else, and look forward to another week of great assignments.